misheard, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth.
I'll make linguistic observations in Johnny Depp's testimony about why he's suing Amber Heard. There's an ambiguity in Depp's way of expressing himself that I find interesting and important to note.
Can you please tell the jury why you're here today?
Yes. About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth.
The first thing worth noting is Depp's excessive use of the interjection throughout his testimony. This interjection functions as a hesitation marker, signifying a high level of caution. When testifying, it's normal for people to speak at a slower rate and think more carefully about the words they choose. But even compared to this quote-unquote norm, Depp is very careful. His speech rate reveals that what he's saying is very sensitive to him, and it also suggests that he's not used to expressing himself publicly about private matters and personal feelings. Heinous and disturbing are strong adjectives, and so is the phrase, not based in any species of truth. His words don't grant Heard any leeway. There's an interesting difference between his verbal and nonverbal behavior, and also a difference within his verbal behavior. Non-verbally, he seems rather reluctant and/or uncomfortable saying this. This isn't someone who enjoys being the center of attention and accusing another person. However, his verbal behavior shows assertiveness. So even though he seems reluctant and/or uncomfortable, he's definitely focused on saying what he believes is the truth. Focused on saying the words that he's most likely rehearsed before taking the stand. His many interjections and self-repairs show hesitation, and based on his strong words and phrases, it's my assessment that he's hesitant because he's so focused on speaking his mind, even though he doesn't like doing it. If you like the video, press the like button, and if you're new, consider subscribing for more videos.
It was a complete shock that it just didn't need to go in that direction.
Depp emphasizes his shock with the intensifier complete, and his self-repair further emphasizes this shock.
That it just didn't need to go in that direction.
He stops himself from detailing the shock and simplifies his explanation with the adverb just, that it just didn't need to go in that direction. Obviously, there's more to this shock than what he says, and maybe he doesn't want to say it. This is congruent with the previous observation, that he wants to make sure he speaks the truth, but that he doesn't want to dwell on uncomfortable details.
As nothing of the kind had ever happened, though the relationship, there were arguments and things of that nature, but never did I myself reach the point of striking Ms. Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
With the conjunction but, he places syntactic emphasis on the part of the sentence that has to do with his claim to not having harmed Heard. This claim supported by backing that he hasn't harmed anyone in the past. His admission that there were arguments is called a rebuttal. A rebuttal is important when making an argument, to make sure you acknowledge the inescapable facts of the case, in this case evidenced by tape recordings. In the following, we see how self-aware Depp is of the words he uses. This isn't unusual, but it's an observation worth making. Notice how he looks for confirmation before saying the word fact.
And so at the time, because the news of this, her accusations had sort of permeated the industry and then made its way through media and social media, became quite a global let's say, quote-unquote, fact, if you will.
Permeated is a strong verb, a strong assertion, but Depp prefaces it with sort of, which is called mitigation. Mitigation is frequently used in conversations to soften what we're saying. Most times, if we're too direct, we run the risk of being perceived as too harsh, and people might not listen to what we have to say. Mitigation is deeply ingrained in our way of speaking, and most times we're unaware of it.
And since I knew that there was no truth to it whatsoever, I felt it my responsibility to stand up not only for myself in that instance, but stand up for my children, who at the time were 14 and 16, and so they were in high school, and I thought it was diabolical that my children would have to go to school and have their friends or people in the school approach them with the infamous People magazine cover with Miss Heard with a dark bruise on her face.
The first part of this passage is called hypotaxis. Hypotaxis marks strong dependency between the main clause and the dependent clause. This syntactic dependency combined with his word choice,
there was no truth to it whatsoever,
once again point to assertiveness. Despite pauses and interjections, Depp's mind is made up, and he doesn't grant Heard any leeway. Also, he gets to show his softer side, expressing concern for his children and what they've had to go through. This shows that he's able to think about others than himself, which is also the word choice he uses.
To stand up not only for myself in that instance, but stand up for my children.
It's particularly important in a defamation case where you're the one suing, to show you're doing it for others as well, and not just for the sake of personal pride. And doing it for his children is a particularly honorable cause in this regard. In the following, we notice the same patterns, Depp showing or proving that he's able to express concern for other people, and also emphasizing his good track record. Obviously, these are key areas in his defense.
And then it just kept it kept multiplying. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. So it was my responsibility, I felt, to not only attempt to clear my name for the sake of, well, for many reasons, but I wanted to clear my children of this horrid thing that they were having to read about their father, which was untrue. And also, after many years of being in this industry, at the time it was I'd probably been in the industry 30 plus years, 35 years. Never had any problems, anything like that.
Next, Depp keeps coming back to how he's being perceived as a result of Heard's claims.
And I had met many people over the years, many of the people, and had the opportunity to talk to those people and to even give advice to these people. And I'm not. My goal is the truth. My goal is the truth, because it killed me that people that I had spoken with, that I had met with over the years, who maybe were in a not such a great position and they needed advice, and I gave them the best advice I could. All I could think of was that those people would think that I was a fraud and that I had lied to them.
This passage is interesting because it's a repetition. He starts by saying that he's met a lot of people over the years, people he's given advice to. Then there's a break where he repeats that truth is his goal, before he repeats almost the same information. What's changed is the highlighting of consequences for Depp on a personal level.
It killed me that think that I was a fraud and that I had lied to them.
This way, he uses the break in the middle to intensify what he means, to really underline the consequences of Hurd's claims. Again, this shows determination to not mince his words. But obviously, he's struggling to express himself bluntly without hesitation. Again, he speaks like someone who doesn't like being the center of attention, but who's doing this out of necessity.
And so I had to wait for my opportunity to address the charges, which were criminal charges. And they just weren't true. So I felt the responsibility of clearing the record as the only way that I could get to the point where I could speak has really taken this full 6 years. And it's been 6 years of trying times. It's very strange when one day you're Cinderella, so to speak, and then in 0.6 seconds you're Quasimodo.
We know Depp's underscoring of the word criminal when talking about the criminal charges against him. This expresses surprise, or perhaps more likely, shock, and is congruent with the complete shock he expressed earlier.
It was a complete shock.
He emphasizes this state of shock and disbelief when he says it's taken him 6 years to get to this point where he can speak. He smiles when he says 6 years and trying times.
This full 6 years, trying times.
The smiling correlates with contexts that cause embarrassment for Depp. Not that it is in fact embarrassing, but that he most likely sees it that way. The smiling reveals that he considers 6 years a long time, and that trying times is most likely an extreme understatement. He ends with the generalizing pronoun you.
Strange when one day you're Cinderella, so to speak, and then in 0.6 seconds you're Quasimodo.
With this pronoun, he makes it possible for other people to mirror themselves in the sudden change he's talking about. Next, he continues to associate with other people, emphasizing that he's not only doing this for himself.
And I didn't deserve that, nor did my children, nor did the people who have believed in me for all these years. I didn't want any of those people to believe that I had done them wrong or lied to them or that I was a fraud. I pride myself on honesty. I pride myself on truth. Truth is the only thing I'm interested in. Other lies will get you nowhere, but lies build upon lies and build upon lies. It's too much to cover. I'm obsessed with the truth, and so today is the first opportunity that I've been able to speak about this case in full for the first time.
Depp struggles with the pronoun I.
I didn't.
And this is a pattern we've noticed throughout his testimony. He might use assertive words and phrases, but it takes him a long time to get to them. Either he's not used to talking about his feelings in public, or he's afraid to, or both. It doesn't come naturally to him to talk about his feelings, and so he struggles with forming relatively simple sentences. Linguistically, this supports the point he made about needing 6 years to get to a point of speaking. He then repeats the previous points about honesty and not wanting to be perceived as a fraud. Linguistically, saying that truth is the only thing he's interested in and that he's obsessed with truth have a hyperbolic function, since he's most likely interested in other things in life. This is the point in his testimony where he's going in circles and is waiting to be interrupted, because he's not saying anything new. His repetition is a cue that he's done talking. Thus, it's unsurprising that the attorney takes the word. But before she does, it's worth noting the adverb actually, which is used to compare two opposite thoughts.
Today is the first opportunity that I've been able to speak about this.
With this word in this context, Depp anticipates the possible objection that he's had other opportunities to come forward. With actually, he indirectly denies this opposite opinion. Next, Depp gets the opportunity to emphasize his role as a protector, and he also gets to explain why he seemed hesitant and maybe even reluctant.
Mr. Depp, how do you feel about the intimate details of your life being aired in this process?
As a father, raising kids, when they were very, very little, it was important to me, very important to me, to try to shield my children as much as possible from looking at their father or their mom, for that matter, as novelties. I didn't want my children to experience hordes of paparazzis. So I was always a very private person. So for me to come up here and stand before you, or sit before you all, and spill the truth is quite exposing. And it's unfortunate that it's not only exposing for myself, it's exposing for my family, it's exposing for Miss Heard, it's exposing for, it never had to go in this direction.
In court, it's obviously very important to stay consistent, and Depp saying that it's quite exposing to spill the truth correlates with his many pauses, interjections, and self-repairs. Also, we note a presupposition. Spill the truth. He presupposes that he's telling the truth. So again, even though he seemed somewhat uncomfortable, he's very focused on speaking his mind. As he's expressing concerns, he mentions Heard as well, with vowel stress on her name. When you're the one suing, it's important to not show anger with the person you're suing, but to show that you're the bigger person with a bigger perspective, and that you're only doing what's right, not only for yourself, but for everyone involved. This could be the truth, but the point is, it's important to show it. Depp's final statement sums up our linguistic observations.
And so I can't say that I'm embarrassed because I know that I'm doing the right thing.
Verbally and non-verbally, Depp has behaved in a way that resembles embarrassment. And since the word embarrassed is on his mind, he's most likely considered it. But obviously, he sees the truth, as he calls it, as more important than the embarrassment. His assertive word choice reveals as much. If you liked the video, please don't forget to press the like button. And if you're new, consider subscribing for more videos like this. See you in the next video.